So, hey guys, Brian Asher, National Sales Director. Unique, something outside the industry. I love cars. I love to do everything to them, work on them myself, spruce them up, and mostly like German sports cars and stuff like that. And spend most of my free time at like racing events and racing my cars at Sebring. I've done that quite a bit and really into that. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, so let's kind of transition away from cars, especially German cars, but maybe why Nexogy? Why
Sure.
think about Nexogy? What are some key takeaways you'd want our audience to think about? You know, if they hear, taste, smell, this looks like Nexogy, so.
Absolutely, yep. So Nexogy, first and foremost, we're a UCaaS company. We do sell a lot more than that. I've heard some other providers up here that we compete with that do similar things. We couple internet with it. We have a kind of a cool a la carte CCaaS solution. So if you're getting into CCaaS, but you don't want to spend $120 a seat, it's not that kind of customer who needs that complete, robust solution with all the different channels of communication. We do like an a la carte approach. So if someone's like, hey, I use Facebook and Instagram Messenger, that's all I need for my other, my additional channel plus voice. We can do something like that and get you in at a much lower price point. On top of that, we're a very kind of like a family feel company. There's about 80 employees, so we're not super huge, but because of that, we're nimble, and a lot of partners like that. So if things come up in your opportunities where you want to add some of your value-added services on our paper to your clients, right? So they don't have two different bills. You can do that. We give it at 100% pass-through. And you can add things like installation, monthly recurring, non-recurring. So we get very creative. We had a partner come to us and say, hey, I lease hardware through companies I'm sure everyone's heard like Graybar and Navitas, but I would like to do that through you guys and work through you guys doing that. Do you have a relationship? We didn't, but he connected us, and so he does that and gets a huge upfront because the company's leasing it and Navitas gives us all the money up front. So it just depends. He was kind of a startup and needed some cash to get going. He was used to selling hardware, and it kind of enabled him to get into cloud, but while still making that money on his hardware up front.
So there's some flexibility in terms of the way you can approach things and do some things. So, the nimble, quick, and responsive, that kind of stuff is there, which is kind of cool. So,
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, I've heard a rumor, and maybe you can confirm it with me a little bit. I know sometimes with UCaaS, it's always like a per seat type of a cost where, if I've got 50 employees, I need to pay for 50 seats, but sometimes that's always the best from a cost perspective. Are there some other options you guys have that maybe make sense in this environment too? If you've got 50 employees, but maybe only 5 or 10 make calls at the same time, maybe.
You nailed it. That is probably the thing that stands out the most for us with partners and customers is our call path model. You can either pay by the seat like everybody else, or you can pay by the call path, kind of like the old school way to do it, right? When we had analog and digital services, but a lot of times customers transition out of that easier because they understand what they're paying for, as opposed to a seat where they're like, well, I got a seat right here. I don't know what you're talking about seats, but it can be advantageous. So the example of 20 users, if that's $20 each per seat, you're at $400. But if they're not heavy phone users, right, like a school or anything that's like distributed enterprise as well, or retail, I should say, where maybe you follow the sun, right? You have like a bunch of locations all over the country. The phones aren't in use by every single extension all at once, so you can pay by the call path. It's a little bit more than per seat, but again, you're getting at a ratio of like 5-to-1, 6-to-1, so it can cut the price in half. And then what a lot of our partners do after that is, well, my commissions are a little bit lower, and you're right, because the MRC is lower. But since you can add your own line item, you can put in something like 24/7 monitoring support, charge it per user if you want, and we pass that through 100%. So now all of a sudden your commission's even more, and the bill is less than you would have paid for the customer if you did seats.
Cool.
So I can show you on the computer, and that's usually where a light bulb comes on. But
the cool
big
thing is,
differentiator.
maybe going back to the flexibility and be able to adapt to what the customer needs are, that's a huge advantage you guys have,
Absolutely. Yep. You can have a customer. We've got a customer where every 100 employees they hire, they add one more call path. So for that, 99, they're like they're enjoying all that for free. Your users have zero cost, and they get the same features and benefits as they would as if they paid for the seat. So we're very simple in that way too. You don't have to memorize a bunch of different seats or different kinds of call paths. It's one or the other.
Cool. And last but not least, kind of wrapping up here, if I'm a partner sitting out here, how do I engage with you guys? What does that look like? And again, next steps following the conversation today.
Absolutely. Let me ask you one question. Is anyone outside of the Southeast United States here who's a partner? Awesome. Can you stand up real quick? This guy, or sit down and wave your hat. Jorge Vidal. That's your man right there. That's who you engage with. He's got his business cards, but he's your dedicated channel manager, and I don't think you'll find one that works harder. So that's also going to be the difference. Is my sales team gets involved in the front end of the pre-provisioning for the customer, and we don't get paid until it's installed, just like you guys. So we own it just as much as you guys all the way through to the end.
Cool. Well, give it up for Nexogy. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, man. And keep your day job. No more jokes.
Yeah, no more jokes.